Okay, so in this example, we've got a couple of things that we want to do. So it says, suppose that a series, a sub n x to the n, is a power series whose interval of convergence is from -1 to 1. And also suppose that we have another power series, b sub n x to the nth power, and that power series has an interval of convergence from -2 to 2. And so the first thing it asks is find the interval of convergence for the sum of these two. Okay, so we want to find the interval of convergence. So A, find I for the series n equals 1 to infinity of a sub n x to the n plus b sub n times x to the nth power. Okay, so in this case it's very straightforward, because remember in the theorem it talks about a common interval of convergence. Okay? So what is the common interval of convergence for both of these series? And so if we look at the interval of convergence of -2 to 2 and -1 to 1, well, the obvious common interval of convergence is that both of these series will converge as long as x is in the interval from -1 to 1. Okay, and so therefore, if we look at the sum of the series, so if we look at this new series, right, then its interval of convergence is going to be -1 to 1. Right, because that is the common interval of convergence. Okay, now the next one says find the interval of convergence for this series. So now how do we handle this one? Well, look at a sub n x to the n, right? So we know that this has an interval of convergence of -1 to 1. Okay? Now, in this case here, a couple of things that this series here is obviously, if you look at the interval of convergence, but again, you can go either way, it's obvious from this, the form, this is centered at 0. So it has a radius of convergence of 1. So it's going to converge on any x value within that interval, so from -1 to 1. Okay, so again, using just the definition of the radius of convergence. Okay, so now if we combine that, right? So we know that this converges for all x in this interval, because why? Again, the radius of convergence is 1. It's centered at 0, right? Okay, so now what can we do? Well, we can combine this. So let's combine this, because this is 3 to the n. So let's combine this to this. And we'll combine this using property of exponents. So this is going to be 3x to the nth power. Now we have that power series where now this is our 2x, if you will. So now, you might see where we're going with this. Now, so this is going to converge. So this series converges at 3x, right? If 3x is in the interval -1 to 1. Okay? So what does that mean? So if 3x, so this converges if 3x is in the interval -1 to 1, which then if you solve, right? So that means if 3x is less than 1 and greater than -1, right? Which then tells us that for this power series converges if x is less than 1/3 or greater than -1/3. And so the interval of convergence is -1/3 to 1/3. And that's it.